Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here on this show on video format. And today we're going to be taking questions that mostly have to do about this upcoming week, the beginning of the preseason and what that entails. And I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about when it comes to the preseason. Now, as of recording this video, it's been announced that Baker Mayfield's not going to play. We already know that, like, more than likely you're not seeing Miles. You're not going to see Odell Beckham. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping when it comes to the preseason. But if you still want to watch that preseason game, and if you want to watch it with me, I'm having a live watch party on the day of the game. So make sure you're subscribed here. Make sure you're notified so you can come check out the preseason game with me. It's going to be a real fun, chill environment. We're going to be taking questions. We're going to be just talking Browns, some extra fun live stream content there. So make sure you guys check it out. But without further ado, let's get into you guys' questions. And there are a lot of interesting questions this week. And we're going to start with CJ, who says, do you expect any starters to get reps during the preseason? Ward, Odell, Garrett, and Chubb you can put in bubble wrap until September 12th. Anyone else you would not dress? Well, I do want to see Baker out there during the preseason. I want to see him out there a couple of times, especially if the first team offensive line is going to be out there. I see no reason why he shouldn't be out there at some point in the preseason. Not saying you go crazy with him, but at some point. We know we're not going to see Odell. There's absolutely no reason to see Myles Garrett in any of these preseason games. There's really no reason to put him out there. And Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, what do you need to learn from them? You know what I mean? Like, we know they're really good running backs. They're tested. They're not really doing anything new. So you're definitely not going to see a lot of snaps for the first team unit on this offense just because it's essentially the same as last year. So the game snaps or the benefit of getting game snaps together really isn't that large because they've already had a full season's worth outside of like Odell and Baker. But Odell's just not playing in the preseason because of injuries that he's had in the past. So if Odell's not playing, it makes no sense to put Baker in, especially in the first preseason game. I do want to see Baker later on, though. I want to reiterate that. But to that point, are there any other players I think they'll put on bubble wrap until the season starts? Probably Denzel Ward, right? I think you get him out there maybe one game with the new secondary they have out there, even though most of Denzel Ward's game isn't about communications, just him on the island. You just kind of get him out there, get him used to those guys, and then once you get that out the way, you get him out there because he has an injury history. But everybody else, I think, will play and will have significant roles in these preseason games. But yeah, the big stars, I wouldn't expect them, especially if they're on offense, that they won't play. You got guys like Austin Hooper who probably need to play because they haven't had great camp so far. David Njoku's going to play, and then you got Harrison Bryant there too. So anybody else, I don't know if they would be on ice, but I think those are some solid names there you bring up. Next question comes from Solomon, who says, do you think they'll put Greedy in during the preseason, or will they be cautious with them being fresh off a injury? Nah. Greedy Williams is not on the list of people who gets that luxury, right? Because one, he has to prove that he can be the number one corner, and he has to do that with game reps. So he's going to have to play. And if he can't play, then Greg Newsome will, and that won't be good for him. So Greedy has to play. He hasn't played in a year. He doesn't get that vet off day treatment, right? That's reserved for, a Denzel Ward, a Myles Garrett, a Baker Mayfield, people who have been, really good at their position in the NFL before. Greedy hasn't been there. He's going to have to play to get his role. The next question comes from Your Bad Ideas Personified. Okay. They say, I've been seeing predictions saying we may keep 7 linebackers due to how competitive the room is. How likely do you think that is to happen? And the same thing with 5 running backs. Absolutely not keeping 7 running linebackers. I don't think that's the case. I think you'll keep 6. If you have to cut somebody, it's probably going to be Tony Fields at this point. This is what it looks like. And then the running backs, they might keep 4. They might, depending on how they classify Demetric Felton. They might. But really only you can justify keeping 4, right? Like 5 would be ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. Like you're not keeping 5, especially when you already carry a fullback on your roster. No, you can't justify that. But 4, maybe, and maybe that comes at the expense of the fullback. I don't know how they're going to factor that one out, but somebody's going to have to be the odd man out. They want Dimitri to make this roster, and it looks like they do. The next question comes from Big Money, who says, hey, Quincy, what's your opinion on everything going on with Takk? He's deleted his Instagram and Twitter account and hasn't been practicing. Personality was an issue for him with the Falcons. Could this be something similar happen? All right. So when something like this happens, right, Takk's taking a step away from the team for some personal reasons. I think the best thing we can do as fans is try not to speculate about somebody's mental health. I don't think that's a very healthy thing to do, just period. And I don't think it's a very kind thing to do either. So with the Takk McKinley situation, just let him handle that situation on his own. It's a personal situation. He's not telling us details. He doesn't want you asking about details to him. That's probably why he's gotten rid of all his social media accounts. So just kind of let him live his life. Let him deal with that situation. And if he comes back, he comes back. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But, no need to speculate about Takk McKinley, his mental health, or his family situation, because again, it's just not appropriate. That's why I haven't dropped any videos on the situation. I just don't think it's appropriate to really come on here and speculate and make content about. Like, this guy is obviously needing to take a step away from the team for his own personal reasons, and I have to respect that. The next question is from Richard Christmas, who says, with another injury, do you think Grant Delpit will play this year? Yeah, he'll play. It's a hamstring injury. Like, it's not that serious. They're just being cautious with him because they know he has a history, the history of injury when it comes to his Achilles, right? You want to take it easy with them. There's no rush for Grant Delpit right now. I know a lot of people are excited for Grant. They want to see Grant out there as soon as possible, but the Browns signed John Johnson. They traded for Ronnie Harrison specifically so they don't have to rush Grant Delpit back, so they don't have to rush things with him, and I think that needs to be considered. They're going to take their time with him. You might not really see a full dosing of Grant Delpit until like week 6. Regardless of if he's injured or not, just because they're easing him back into this thing. And I think that's the right thing to do. So when it comes to Grant, they're going to take it easy with him. That's what they have prepared themselves to do. That's why they have some of the personnel on this team that they do. And that's going to be how this thing's handled. So they're going to take it easy with Grant. I don't think this hamstring really throws a huge monkey wrench into anything. I just think it's just something that's happening that they're going to be extra cautious about. The next question comes from Ben Smith, who says, who will we talk about being extended if they play well this season, Mack Wilson or Taki? Realistically, probably neither, right? Because they drafted replacements. I mean, like Tony Fields, Jacob Phillips, and obviously JOK. They're prepared for some turnover in the linebacking room, and they're fine with a little bit of turnover in the linebacking room, right? BJ Goodson was solid last year, and they let him go, sign Anthony Walker. They feel like the linebacker position is one that they're okay with a little bit of turnover on. And, if Mack Wilson has a great year, he probably isn't going to get a big deal with the Cleveland Browns. Same thing with Taki. And if you had to re-sign one of the two, you would probably want to go with Taki because Taki's just been more consistent throughout his NFL career, has put up more good seasons than Mack Wilson has, and they're in the same exact draft. So I would go with Taki over Mack Wilson at that point. The next question is from Adam, who says, hey, Q, thanks for all the exceptional Browns content. Been hearing McDowell and Curtis Weaver have been playing well in camp. What are your thoughts on them making the roster? Do I believe in their potential? I don't think they're going to make the roster. I know there's a lot of Curtis Weaver fans. I just don't think he's going to be able to make the roster. I think it's a real uphill battle for him, right? Because it's pretty set. Maybe if Takk doesn't come back and he's not ready to play this year, you can maybe slide Curtis Weaver in there, but they might want to just go with a veteran who got cut from another team rather than, going with Curtis Weaver in there. And I know some people have said good things about Curtis Weaver during camp. Everything I have seen, it hasn't been spectacular from Curtis Weaver. There hasn't been anything from McDowell or Curtis Weaver to the extent to where I've seen things with Tommy Togiai and Marvin Wilson that kind of popped me. So I just don't see it with the dude. I don't know if he makes the roster, but I do think it's going to be an uphill battle for him. I know he has a fan base. He definitely has a fan base of people rooting for him, so that's good for him. But I think it's going to be real hard for him to make the roster just because I don't think they're going to keep more than 4 or 5 defensive ends on this team. This next question comes from AK, who says, when you look at Baker and Josh Allen's numbers over 3 years in the league, they look relatively identical. Do you think Baker deserves to get paid $40 million per year or somewhere in that ballpark? Well, I mean, like, there's 2 arguments you can make here. One, I've seen that one going around. And even though you guys know I love Baker Mayfield, I love the Cleveland Browns, everything else in between in that, I do think that that kind of statement is dishonest. Why do I think that statement is dishonest? When you're saying, well, they have the same stats. Yes, Baker and Josh Allen have the same passing stats, but rushing stats are completely different. Like, he does have that extra element to his game. And also Josh Allen has gone further in the playoffs than Baker Mayfield has so far in his career. Right now, I have a strong belief that Baker, if you gave him $40 million, he would be worth $40 million in the long run. But I think what the front office wants to see and what Baker wants to prove is that he can have one of those seasons where people are talking about him in the same light that they talked about a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson, right? Where they're in the top 5 conversation. They could possibly be in the MVP conversation. That's what Baker has to prove to kind of get that upper echelon money. If not, you know, if he has a season that's similar to last year, which is a top 10 season, he'll get top 10 money, which is $35 million, somewhere along that line. But if he does have a good year this year, just a slight step up from what he did last year, yeah, he'll get that top 5 money. And he'll be worth that top 5 money because, again, the cap's going to go up. Again, the cap's going up. $40 million right now seems like a lot, but the cap's going to explode pretty soon here. And you have everybody else on this team pretty much locked up, so it won't be a huge deal. So it won't be a huge deal when it comes to who you have to kind of get rid of in order to keep this core that they have here. But that's it for this week's Q&A. Again, guys, thank you for asking along YouTube and Twitter. And I want to thank you. And I hope you guys have a great day and have a good night.